time, I'm going to invite Benjamin Foote, who's a country director, to please come and give us a welcome message. Can we please give him a round of applause? This is the country director of Save the Children. Can we give him a round of applause, a better round of applause?
I am, as I was introduced, the country director of Save the Children, and as the name would suggest, we are about children. And we therefore have many children with us today, and what we are trying to do here is to make sure that their voices are heard by us adults. We're seeing happening to children as a result of the First World War. And subsequently afterwards, she wrote up the Declaration of the Rights of the Child, which she then submitted to what was then called the League of Nations. That eventually, in 1989, was to become the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which is the single most widely signed convention amongst countries that the UN has ever signed up to. Thank you. Thank you. So we all, if you've been in the gallery, you will have seen about Eglantine Jebb and her heroic work on behalf of children and trying to make people understand again the importance of children to us. Now, Save the Children in Nigeria, we became established in 2001 in a small little office in Kaduna. Although we had been here briefly during the Biafra time, we were actually pretty unknown in Nigeria in 2001. I was fortunate enough to be asked to set up that office, and I stayed here at that time for 7 years establishing Save the Children in Nigeria. I then went away for a while, and when I came back, I inherited what had become a really quite complex program stretching from the humanitarian crisis in Borno in the north, the nutrition crisis in the north in Katsina and Zamfara, and the HIV crisis in the deep south of the country. We're working in all of these areas. So we've come a long way, not in 100 years, just in 18. So we're taking the opportunity of this meeting to launch some reports that will enable us to understand some of the horrors, I hate to say, that are facing children today. I can just find my note on it. So I hope you picked your copy up, or that you will do when you leave. But the first one is this one. So this is called Stop the War on Children. And it's talking about how many more children are affected by conflict now compared to, let's say, 10 years ago. And the comparison is actually very frightening. They say here that 420 million children, 420 million, that's a lot, of children are living in a conflict zone. And we know where those are now. One is on our own doorstep in the northeast, one is in Yemen, one is in Syria, and one is in Iraq. We can go on forever. So that's the first report, Stop the War on Children. The second one is called Changing Lives in Our Lifetime. Now this is quite interesting. This is a report produced by Save the Children that tries to measure how safe children are to grow up as children. And what it finds is the exact opposite of the conflict. It finds that actually children have a much better chance of surviving now than they did in 2001. So just over the period of 1.5 generations or so, we being the global population, have made a major change in children's capacity to be children and grow up safely. So in the document is a table of, I think, 170-odd countries that are measured against the improvements that have happened. Now, although in Nigeria there have indeed been improvements over that period of time, they have not been kept pace with the other countries. So although there is improvement, there is a lot further that we can go. So that's the second report. And the third report is more homegrown. This is from our work in Borno, trying to provide protection to children who are unaccompanied or otherwise at risk. So protection is at the heart of the problem in the Northeast. And so I commend this and the other reports to you because it's the linkages between them that is so very important. So that's the purpose of today's meeting, is to celebrate the 100 years of Save the Children and to launch these 3 reports to you. I would just like to finish by saying how many times have we read or heard that children are our future? They're actually not our future, they are our present. And yet, the investment in things that children need to grow, the investment in education, the investment in health, remains way down the countries, not just this country, all countries' budgets. So what we are trying to do here is to appeal to people to understand that if we ignore our children today, the future is very, very bleak. And already, as we look around the world, we see young people, children coming out to fight against the ecological disasters that they see around them, the environmental degradation, the global warming. So it is our job as adults today to make sure that we can find solutions to these problems. And when I was born, which was a very long time ago, I was lucky enough to grow up in 10 years, in the only 10 years when the whole world was at peace. Since, the early 60s, that has gradually changed. And now I think we have to admit that the whole world is in a state of conflict. And you know who is responsible for that. That is us adults, not these children. So let's take that on board and try to do everything we possibly can to let our children grow up to a better world and not one that we have managed to destroy. So thank you very much.
At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be having a few Goodwill messages. And starting us off, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Ifoma Anabogo, the Permanent Secretary from the Federal Ministry of Women's Affairs and Social Development, to give her Goodwill message. Can we please put our hands together for her as she comes? We can do better than that. Can we put our hands together for her?
Good morning. The representative of the Vice President, Mrs. Miriam Owais, the Acting Governor of Zamfara State, Barrister Ali Muhammad, the Country Rep, Save the Children, Mr. Benfoot, distinguished Senator and honorable members of the National Assembly, representatives of the permanent secretaries of ministries, government ministries, Ministry of Health, ambassadors, heads of missions, and other country representatives here present, heads and representatives of agencies, parastatals, representatives of development partners, stakeholders, our dear children, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I haven't left anybody out, but distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am most delighted to be here and at the same time humbled to give this goodwill message at this historic occasion of the centenary anniversary for Save the Children. It is 100 years of unparalleled human services to children, and in fact to various countries, rendered by a special team, the Save the Children. It's indeed heartwarming to note that Save the Children now has a permanent presence in Nigeria, and it's been so for the past 18 years, with providing interventions on health, nutrition, education, food security, improved livelihood, among others. You will agree with me that the impact of humanitarian crisis in Nigeria, has been stated earlier on, and in fact other countries, on children is enormous and calls for urgent and continuous collaborative action by stakeholders in order to reverse the trend and safeguard the future of our dear children, and as we just heard, also to safeguard our future. Conflict put children in situations where their rights are violated, including the rights to life, living in an optimal condition in families, the right to health, education, as well as survival and development. It is worthy to note that in eliminating humanitarian conflict and other various forms of crisis in Nigeria, addressing issues such as socioeconomic, political, environmental, and cultural, religious factors are very important, especially at this time. The need to address these issues also include, or the issues to be addressed also include youth unemployment. We need to also engage the youth appropriately, and we know the risk of having them unengaged or disengaged, the risk it has on peace and stability. The government of Nigeria, especially through the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development and other relevant stakeholders, is working assiduously to provide the much-needed support to the teeming population of internally displaced persons. And of course, these include a lot of children. A great percentage comprise children, especially in the Northeast, and then various machinery and systems have been established to do this. An example is the Operation Safe Corridor, which was established by the federal government, and it's one of the interventions that this administration, President Muhammadu Buhari administration, is committed to strengthening in order to ensure that every child is given the opportunity to enjoy his or her rights in an atmosphere of peace and healthy environment. I won't say much because I know Madam will say a lot about other such systems and machineries, structures put in place to achieve that result. Save the Children has remained a major ally of the ministry in providing relevant technical and financial assistance in the implementation of programs and projects aimed at promoting and protecting the rights of our children. I am very excited at your resolve, Save the Children's resolve, to scale up collaboration with my ministry and in fact government of Nigeria in order to bring about an accelerated change for children, including the domestication of the Child Rights Act. By now, it should be implemented nationwide. And in fact, we have to do it in the most aggressive manner if we want to achieve our results, our target. May I also inform you, sir, that there's a committee, Child Rights Committee, Implementation Committee established by the ministry and various stakeholders to ensure that the Child Rights Act is implemented in an optimal manner nationwide. We need to support them, we need to encourage them to add impetus to ongoing effort in that regard. I wish to reiterate the commitment of my ministry to work with Save the Children and other stakeholders to ensure that preventive, legislative and other measures necessary to stamp out practices that are of variance with the provisions of the rights of the child are put in place and made functional in the best interest of our dear children. We do recognize and identify with your unparalleled support, unparalleled accomplishments for the past 100 years, and we know that today, today, yes, we're all celebrating. I know your efforts and the establishment of Save the Children, the centenary anniversary, specifically was like, not today, but like a month or so ago, yes. And we are very proud to be associated with you. And this is, we do recognize your service to humanity. And this is humanitarian service, giving hope to the vulnerable, to the voiceless poor, to the less privileged and downtrodden, and especially our dear children. We thank you so much, and we convey our very best wishes to you now and always, also for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam. Up next, representing the Permanent Secretary for the Federal Ministry of Health, Alhaji Abdulaziz Abdullahi, please help me welcome Dr. Christopher Uboko, Head of GASH Division, to give his goodwill message. Can we please put our hands together for him as he comes?
The execution of programs in Federal Ministry of Health will not be complete without mentioning the very important contributions of Save the Children. So today, we join the rest of you here in congratulating Save the Children in their Centenary celebration for providing the avenue for us to be able to reach the nooks and crannies of this country, the states and the local governments. It would not have been possible for the Federal Ministry of Health to do this without the enormous contributions of Save the Children. So we join each and every one of you in saying, Save the Children, more grease to your elbow. Thank you very much.
Coming up next, once again, help me welcome Barrister Mahadi Ali Mohammed Bissau, the acting governor of Zamfara State, to come and give his goodwill message. Can we please put our hands together for him as he comes?
Your Excellency, the Vice President, or should I say the representative of the Vice President, Mrs. Mariam Uwais, SA on social investment, the country rep, or rather country director, Mr. Benfoot, Save the Children. Thank you all for inviting Zamfara State for this event. Zamfara is very grateful for all your hard work. As you know, we've only been, I think tomorrow marks 1 month for us being in office, but at the same time we've heard such good things about Save the Children for Zamfara. Save the Children came to Zamfara 2011, so I'm told, and has implemented 5 different projects, which were funded by DFID and the Canadian government, mostly targeting malnutrition. Also, billions of naira was involved, up to a tone of 4 billion, and we're hoping in the next coming few months or years we will get to invest double that in maybe education, healthcare, and youth empowerment. I would like to help Save the Children celebrate 100 years of excellence and remind them that Zamfara State is supporting international NGOs in all their good work, and will continue to give support to Save the Children for this day. Thank you once again for your support.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to call on, for another Goodwill message, on Ambassador Marian Kapin Van de Copello. I apologize if I murdered that name. The Netherlands ambassador in Nigeria. They're here. Please, can we give her a round of applause?
I wish to congratulate Save the Children. 100 years ago, Eglantine Jeb started this fantastic work all over the world, starting in Europe, now working all over the world. A tireless serving and support for children. When our children, our grandchildren, ask us, what did you do? Can we answer truthfully, we did our utmost to improve the world, to improve your world, to improve the world around us, near us and far away? Save the Children certainly can answer, yes, we tried, we worked. Under our Human Rights Fund, the Netherlands are working with Save the Children on ending child marriage in Katsina and Gombe states, which targets vulnerable and out-of-school girls, schoolgirls, and married and unmarried adolescents. Focus is to strengthen the capacity of CSOs to influence the domestication and implementation of the Child Rights Act and promote the implementation of the national strategy to end child marriage in Nigeria. This project works closely with other CSOs as well as governments and national children's parliaments. With this project, we hope to support girls with the knowledge and skills to make informed decisions about their sexual and reproductive rights, their sexual and reproductive health, and that increases access to youth-friendly sexual and reproductive health services. We focus on the causality between child marriage and education, especially girls' education. That is what will make the greatest difference for the future of all. All statistics show this. Save the Children is also the lead organization in the Nigeria Joint Response, which is providing emergency humanitarian assistance to the people affected by the crisis in northeast Nigeria. And there are so many more places in Nigeria, in Africa, in the world, in other continents, where Save the Children is working. Let us work to end these terrible situations where children suffer. And in the meantime, Save the Children, please keep up the good work. We support you.
Thank you very much, madam. Up next, representing the Norwegian ambassador in Nigeria, please help me welcome Marie Lundeby Grepstad for her own Goodwill message. Can we please put our hands together for her as she comes? My clappers, help me clap now.
Good morning. I would like to stand on existing protocol. On behalf of the Norwegian Embassy, it is my privilege to congratulate Save the Children on its 100 years anniversary. Save the Children is one of the most important civil society partners to Norway around the world. Your efforts to improve the lives of children in Nigeria are commendable. Ensuring that all children go to school is one of our most important tasks. It is also one of the most powerful and proven vehicles for sustainable development. Education, including in crisis and conflicts, is therefore a key priority to Norway, and Norway partners with Save the Children to increase access to quality education for children in northeast Nigeria. Save the Children has also been instrumental, together with governments and partners, in advancing the Safe Schools Declaration and its implementation here in Nigeria. The aim of that declaration is to prevent attacks on schools. We cannot achieve the SDGs without strong partnerships between stakeholders across civil society, public and private sectors. Norway looks forward to continue joint efforts with Save the Children to promote the rights of all children so that no child is left behind. Thank you.
I'd like to announce the presence of Architect Sonny Echano, who is going to be represented by Mrs. Nkiru Osisioma, the acting director from the Ministry of Education. Can we please put our hands together for her? But I'd like to also ask at this time, representing the EU delegation in Nigeria, Mr. Cornelius Kurt, the head of operations, to come and give his Goodwill message. Can we please put our hands together for him as he comes? Okay, we're going to move right along. So I'm going to invite Mrs. Nkiru Osisioma, the acting director in the Ministry of Education, to please come and give her Goodwill message on behalf of the ministry. Can we please put our hands together for her as she comes? Can we do better than I? Put our hands together for her as she comes.
Good morning, everyone. Please permit me to stand on already established protocol. On behalf of my permanent secretary, Architect Sonny Echano, who is unavoidably absent due to exigency of work. He was supposed to be here because as of yesterday, he instructed me to write his Goodwill message. But unfortunately, he's not here now. But he sent me to represent him. and do other assignments that will be given to me. We want to celebrate with Save the Children. They have been intervening in so many ways in the education sector. The education sector deals with children at every level in their lives, from early childhood education up to tertiary, even in non-formal sector. I have been driving education in emergency working group Nigeria. I am the national coordinator, and Save the Children and UNICEF are my co-lead. Save the Children, since 2001, that it has come to Nigeria, they have been intervening in education, especially in the Northeast, that they're in all the IDPs camps, they're giving education to make sure that there is no gap, even in times of crisis. They have built teachers' capacity, they have supplied temporary learning spaces, they have given technical support, and above all, in emergency situations. That even in Benue State and also in refugee camp in Cross River State. We cannot endlessly say that Save the Children have not done a lot in Nigeria. When we visited the IDP camps last month in Borno State, let me announce to you that it was only teachers from Save the Children that we have found teaching in the IDP camps. This is a plus to them. I also want to inform you that Save the Children have been building our capacity in crisis management, especially in the education emergency working group that they are leading with the Federal Ministry of Education. They took us to Dakar and built our capacity in a program that is globally all over the world have signed and endorsed. If not Save the Children, we will not be part of it. And that is what is called Safe Schools Declaration, where schools are protected from attacks and the military men are not allowed to use schools as their base. Last month, I was in Spain in the Third World Conference on Safe School Declaration, courtesy of Save the Children and the federal government. They have also supplied teaching materials, teaching and learning materials, textbooks, school uniforms, bags, and so on and so forth. Not only in education, as well as child protection, issues like the health sector has said, malnutrition, they have taken care of that. They have also taken care of water resources is not here. They are all our development partners that we work as a team in terms of sanitation, water, and hygiene. I want to sincerely congratulate you, sir, for the good work you are doing. But like Oliver Twist, we want to plead that there are some states that you have not intervened. They have been disturbing me that you should come and also help them. So because we have 36 states plus FCT, which is 37. So you are intervening in 20 states. There are some states that need your help. And I want to use this opportunity to remind you, if there is more resources, government cannot do it alone. We need your help. I also want to thank you for giving me privilege to be in Spain, where I met your chief executive. And she's a woman. And I thank you for intervening in girls' education. Because if Borno State has been training their girl child, they will not have Boko Haram. But now they have built schools for them to be in school more than the boys. If Somalia has had more teachers than army generals, there won't be war in Somalia. So I want to sincerely congratulate you and thank you and wish you well in your future endeavor. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. In the meantime, I'd like to announce the presence of the Country Director for Clinton Health Access Initiative, Dr. Owens. Can we please put our hands together for them if they are here with us? Also, representing the CD of Plan International, Dr. Oji Egubere. Can we please put our hands together for them wherever they are? I'd like to ask for a representative from the EU delegation in Nigeria, Mr. Cornelius Kurtz, to please come and give a Goodwill message. Are they here? Is there a representative? So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me put your hands together and welcome the Speaker of the National Children's Parliament, Honorable Naysara Abdul Kader Abbas. Can we put our hands together for him? No, wait, hold on. See, these children, you gotta do better. These ones are okay. You right now, you have to applaud him like he's a superstar because he is. Can we please put our hands together for the Speaker of the Children's Parliament, Honorable Naysara Abdul Kader Abbas, as he comes for his speech. Yes. Keep clapping as he's coming. Keep clapping. Oh, wow. Sir, can I just ask, how old are you, sir?
16 years.
Wow. On that very note, I will sit my not doing anything 16-year-old behind down. Let him continue his speech.
Members of the High Table, all protocol duly observed, good morning. Please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. I feel it's highly delighted to be invited to this August and epoch-making event marking the centenary anniversary of Save the Children Present project in worldwide. My dear parents, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to quickly indicate that the Nigerian Children's Parliament being the umbrella for promoting not only the welfare of children, but for advancing their right to free and compulsory education, mostly at the low level, healthcare service delivery, protecting from hazard, among others. Continue to recognize and appreciate the vital roles of Save the Children, being an inevitable international organization committed to complementing the government's determination towards tackling and emancipation our unwarranted plight of children, for rapid social, educational, and physical progress and development. There is no gainsaying, ladies and gentlemen. Since its establishment in 1999, Save the Children project, which made its remarkable debut in Nigeria in 2001, remains constant in impacting positively on the life of Nigerian child through its various programs and intervention on health and nutrition, education perspectives, security and livelihoods, child rights governance, and child protection. All this from the historical perspective, we say to have manifested in particular in the aftermath of unfortunate civil war where the lives of children incarcerated were served. During the insurgency periods of Northeast, Save the Children was among the first to respond quickly in this humanitarian crisis is Northeast, and were extended in which, from available records, a number of over 320,000 internally displaced children implemented by undue human crisis has been provided a regular basis, which education in emergencies, food assistance, protection services. Equally, my dear members of the higher table, and worthy to note, it is an organization for active commitment in salvaging the ugly predicament of the Cameroon refugees crisis in Cross River, where a great number of children that were mostly hit by the empire have been provided along with their families with basic social amenities such as water, sanitation, hygiene, and child protection and protection services. Cognizant of foregoing, our country director, Mr. Benford, it becomes imperative to state in categorical terms, however, that despite effort to ameliorate the plight of children in the country, statistical records still indicate that a considerable number of children in Nigeria are still subjected to various ailment, disease, squalor, hunger, poor educational background, and forced that life, poor sanitation, and for protection from various levels. Out of the accession, one can still mention that the physical, social, and economic index, there exists a serious challenge where 50% of the girls above 18 years are illiterate. 32% of the school-age children are out of school. The scenario also indicates that out of 1,000 children 104 die before their 5th birthday, while 51% of the children are positively engaged in child labor, and 70% of the parents live in subject poverty. At this juncture, may I register the appreciation of the National Children Parliament for the establishment of Children Parliament in Gombe and Katsina states. Together with all your various intervention and support rendered to some vulnerable children whose family are devastated as a result of religious conflict, social unrest, or ethnic bargaining in the last 18 years of your operation. In this country, no amount of assistance to salvage the lives of our dear colleagues is considered too small, actually. Our brothers and sisters need helping from home and sundry for our life to build very comfortably to live in our society, as all of us say that the children are the present of the day and the future of tomorrow. I am saying this with no intention, but as a duty bound, as the #1 child of Nigeria, being elected as the Speaker of Children's Parliament, as the incoming President and the Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. To all and sadly, that the safe children cover 2/3 of the vulnerable children in Nigeria, following statistics. About 17.6 million children in Nigeria are facing physical, social, and economic challenges. Despite this number, Save the Children protected 296,132 children from all forms of abuses across the country. Please, as in like this mission, please, children, you should clap for hands for the children, save the children, because they did a lot. Supported 186,315 in the time of crisis and outside their societies. Provide 5,471,422 children with healthy start in life. Gave 5,262,326 children vital nutrition. Supported 296,326 parents to provide for their children a basic need. Save the Children in Nigeria is distributing food to vulnerable families, reaching nearly 16,500. They established authoritative feeding centers and outreach centers that provide food for infant and young children suffering from malnutrition, raising 11,532,533 to 21 children. We must appreciate you indeed with great honor. Please, ladies and gentlemen, we have 17.6 million children that are facing problem in Nigeria, and Save the Children covers at least 11 million. So I don't think that we can express this joy as we children. It is also pertinent to use this opportunity also and remind our executive governors of the various states, especially of the 12th state where the child rights has not been fast, to please facilitate the realization of the rights of children. Finally, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Nigerian Children's Parliament and the entire children of this country, including those that are in the diaspora, I wish to most certainly congratulate the Save the Children for marking 100 years anniversary of its existence and 18 years period in creating an indelible mark in the annals of history of the world and Nigeria in particular. I must dip my hoods to the country director, Mr. Benjamin Poot, for his commitment and tireless effort of ensuring the Save the Children program becomes a household name not only within the government establishment but for the entire families across the north and crown for our great nation Nigeria. I wish you most sincerely and successful anniversary marking the centenary existence of our beloved humanitarian organization. I owe you my please assurance that Save the Children will be in the minds of Nigerian children and that of the world for more than 1,000 years to come, not hundreds. I will not conclude my speech without including my appreciation to the Federal Ministry of Human Affairs, most honor in the leadership of the Permanent Secretary and the Child Development Department for supporting Save the Children to carry out its project successfully. Long life Save the Children, long life Nigerian Children's Parliament, and long life the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you all for your time and listening.
Sir, distinguished honorable sir, I just want to ask, do you have any vacancies in your office? Because if this empty work, I don't do it for too long, I come and work for you. Can we think about it? We can talk about it, Abby. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on to a panel discussion right now. And we're going to have a panel discussion on 4 separate topics. We have the PCIC Borno Assessment Report, the Global Childhood Index Report, the Stop the War on Children Campaign Flagship Report, and the role of development actors, SGBV Free Nigeria for Children. So I'd like to invite to have their seats on this panel. And you'll do me a favor and just please applaud them as they come. I'd like to call on Senator Dr. Ibrahim Oloriegbe to please come and join us on the panel. Please give him a round of applause. He's here with us. I'd like to call on Hamzat Lawal, who's the Executive Director for Code. Can we please put our hands together for them? I'd like to call on Mrs. Nkiru Osisioma, the Deputy Director, National and International Development Partners Division, Federal Ministry of Education. Please put your hands together for her as she comes. I'd like to call on Milen Kidane, the Chief Child Protection for UNICEF. Can we put our hands together for him? And Favor of Purity, the Girl Champion, the Speaker for FCT Children's Parliament, the Honorable. Can we please put our hands together for her as she comes? I keep forgetting. I'm like, she's honorable. She's a child. Who called me that at my age? Even now. Can we please give them another round of applause as they come? And at this time, to moderate this panel, please help me with a rousing round of applause, the Director of Advocacy and Campaigns for Save the Children, Emmanuel Mamo. Can we please give him a round of applause as he comes? Okay.
Distinguished Senator, you have already been able to look at the Families Torn Apart report, this report. So would you briefly tell us your take? What are the findings of the report? What really touched you in the report?
Thank you very much. I stand on the 16th protocol. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I think the report I read is the extract of that, which is the 17-pager on the state of the children in Borno State specifically. And I'm speaking sincerely. When I read the report, I cried. And I'm very sincere. I cried because I could not imagine the situation that I must admit, I've not been to Borno in several years. The last time I was in Borno was before the war. That is when I was with Earth Reform Foundation. And when I read the report and I imagined the various dimensions of sufferings that children are going through, I felt appalled. I felt very sad. But more importantly, I felt challenged. Challenged by virtue of the current opportunity I have. Challenge to be able to see what can I do together with my colleagues to change that situation. What can I do with the situation of children who are not only out of school, but they are malnourished, they don't have a residence, they are living in IDP camps, but they are living in a camp where, for girls especially, some of them have to trade their body to be able to survive. I read a situation where, despite those challenges, to be able to cope, those children have to engage in drugs and engage in getting kind of drugs to be able to cope. Where those children have to be able to, particularly, I was moved by children that came out of conflict, who are called so-called Boko Haram children. Those children are not only rejected by the immediate community, they are rejected by the entire society. And I look at what's the future. Because they are children, it's not their own, it's not by the fault of theirs that they are brought to the world. But here it is, society is rejecting them. But as I said, having looked at all this, I felt as somebody that is opportune to be in government at this time, I have to do more to be able to see, one, how do we get it right? To be able to do it, to prevent, because what is happening is not only in Borno, it's spreading now. While I work with Save the Children, I work more in the northwest, in Zamfara, Katsina, and Kidane. But with what we read of what is happening in Zamfara, so I can imagine the spread of that across the country. So the first thing that challenged me is that those that are there now in Borno, what do we do to be able to improve the situation? Working with all the various partners there. The government of Nigeria will need to have to not only add more resources, but be more committed politically to change that. But I look more at preventing its reoccurrence or continuous occurrence. And by that, we have to now go into development. We have to be able to prevent the situation that created that situation. So maybe because of time we are many. So that's what I would say is a summary of what I've seen in that and what my feelings and my views are.
Thank you very much, Senator. Just to have a follow-up question on what you have just said, what does it really take to change the situation for children in general in conflict situations?
I think, one, it will be for us to recognize the peculiar and the special need of children in this situation. To recognize that just like we started today, they are not adults. They are helpless. And it is the responsibility of the adult to be able to help them, not to exploit them. Because there is exploitation that goes on. That's one. And to be able to do this, we need education, we need information to the larger society, because to the people, to the adults that are around the children to be aware. But two, that one will be to the community, because what we must say is that even the community don't recognize this. There are certain social and cultural issues or barriers that prevent adults from doing what they are doing, particularly for gay children. I may refer to one of the key dominant cross-cutting issues across that is the fact that, particularly for gay children, the society where they are does not recognize the kind of abuse and the kind of what they face. And this is because of lack of education, because of the culture. But two, it also requires more resources to be applied by the government and by everybody. But let me say it's not by government of Nigeria again. The world is a global village. I think the world needs to do more to be able to support this cause. And that within organizations like Save the Children and such other NGOs that are working there, we need to raise more resources, working with the government, working with the community to be able to do more for this thing. That's the second one. But the third one, there are also issues about the policies and laws. Because we speak, Borno is one of the states where Child Rights Act has not been domesticated, where the judiciary is weak, because with the abuse that goes on with female children. What I read in that report is a lot of times, the people that are caught are not dealt with in the appropriate manner because the society just accepted it as a norm. And these things can be done about it.
Thank you very much, Senator. Hamzi, now you have gone through the global childhood report that Save the Children produced. What was your take from that report?
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, and congratulations on your 100-year celebration. First, for me, I think the report gives hope. It gives hope because if you look at and taking from the past 10 years, what has happened and what is happening today, it has highlighted that we have progressed. Not as much as we want to, or not as much as we should have, but it gives hope that if we collectively collaborate more, identify that there is a crisis, and that we take equal responsibility rather than throwing the blames around. And I'll give you a few examples. And I'm glad that distinguished have talked about the Northeast. But I visited the Northeast recently, and my work takes me there every now and then. And looking at the plight of the children in the Northeast, today, sadly, we deal with these kids like they are adults. And some of them have to go into adulthood because they've lost their parents, particularly their mothers, because of the war. But then again, if we look at government responsiveness and investments, particularly around social investments, because I believe that this incentive that would put the country on a pathway to increasing investment and ensuring that children are given safe space to strive and meet their potentials in life. I took a trip to the Southwest, and just interacting with children and getting to get feedback from them and trying to understand how have government incentive impacted them. Oh yes, today we say that Nigeria have the highest number of children that are out of school. But if you look at the data from 2010 and 2015, and you look at the data that was released by the Ministry of Education, we have progressed. And I can tell you firsthand that even the school management committees have said, we've increased enrollment because children now have access to nutritious meal. But have we also increased investment to ensure that we scale the infrastructural provisions for children to access, for instance, wash facilities? If you go to some schools, they don't even have toilets. And when the girl child is in her menses, she would have to lose 5 to 7 days of importance class. I believe that as much as we've made progress, most more important, there's an opportunity here, Emmanuel. There's an opportunity for us to look at where we are, but collectively agree where we want to be. Because there are pockets of initiative and pockets of intervention. But how can we bring all these initiatives together and hold hands as stakeholders, as government, as civil society, but most importantly also as the media? Because over time we've not really amplified the role of the media in ensuring that important reports like this are put on the front burner consistently, so that we're reminded of our roles and responsibilities to the girl child. If we do not ensure that these kids or these children meet their potential, we don't have a future. Because presently our future is bleak. And the future is now. So it means that the investment has to start now. Thank you.
The future is now. Thank you, Hamzat. I've had a chance to read through the labeled to be childhood hinders are, for example, child labor, child marriage, lack of education, malnutrition, you name it. So those 176 countries were rated on how they are performing to mitigate those childhood hinders in the report. My ask for you is, what should we do differently to accelerate change? Like you have already said, yes, there has been change in the last 20 years, but it's a kind of snaily, gradual change. It's not yet enough. How do we speed up? And for how long are we supposed to wait to see change for children? And for example, Save the Children has been established, founded 100 years ago, during the First World War, and after a century now, we are still talking about the effects of war. For how long are we supposed to be waiting to end war on children?
Amanda, first let's look at the policy and regulatory framework. But before I go into that, we need to agree that we need to treat children as children, rather than treating children as adults. I would take the Child Rights Act as a reference point. As much as our National Assembly and the President have assented on the Child Rights Act, a lot of states are shying away from taking responsibility in domesticating this act. Because today, if we have all the 36 states domesticate the act, that alone allows for regulatory and policy framework to protect the child, particularly the girl child. You cannot hide under culture and religion. When you want to prey on a vulnerable citizen, I believe that it has come to a time where we have to say things as they are, without mixing words. Accountability is key. have we garnered value for resources in the past? No. Have we ensured that every cent on the dollar or every kobo on the naira is well accounted for and used judiciously to ensure that the girl child, but children generally, are protected and supported to meet their potential in life? I believe that if we agree, taking the reference of the policy that empowers children being adopted by the 36 states, knowing that the federal government at the federal level have played their role, then maybe that inequality gap, even amongst children, would be closed. That is my own take.
I think I would agree with you that in order to narrow the gap, one of the major first steps we need to take is to have the right policies in place, like you particularly mentioned the Child Rights Act, which is supposed to be domesticated by as many states as possible, and actually by all states, and it should be costed, it should be implemented. That commitment should be there. I'm hoping that the newly elected National Assembly members in each of the states would be taking this into serious. And probably it would be one of the gifts that this newly elected member of House of Assemblies and lawmakers would present to children as a gift, maybe for the new year upcoming in 2020. Let's hope that. All right. Ma'am, moving on to you. You have been able to review the Stop the War report. Would you please tell us some of the most critical findings, some of the most critical issues that you want to share us this morning?
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me opportunity to be here. I want to talk as a teacher. First of all, let our audience know what the report is all about, for those who have not known. The founder of Save the Children said that every war is a war against children. And again stated 6 violations against children in terms of war. 1, killing and maiming of children. 2, recruitment and use of children as soldiers. 3, sexual violence against children. 4, abduction of children. 5, attacks on schools and hospitals. And 6, denial of humanitarian access. And when you talk about Northeast, all these are there. I have been working in the Northeast since 2012 till date. And when you go in Borno State, which is the most hit, all these are there. In terms of education, as of some years back, most schools were closed in Borno. They were used as IDP camps inside Maiduguri, the state capital. You can now imagine what the other local governments will look like. And again, many teachers were killed. Many students were killed. Many parents were killed. Many schools were destroyed. And these are as a result of insurgency. Same as Adamawa, same as Yobe State. Now, many girls, they were abused and still being abused by those that are taking care of them. You know that education is a fundamental right of every child. And again, there are rights that we are entitled to. Right to live, right to be protected, right to freedom of speech, right to association, religion, conscience, thought, and so on and so forth. And these are being violated in the rights of the children there. I was in Maiduguri and Borno State last month. and I visited many IDP camps. In fact, I was crying. I was crying because their rights are being abused. They have no temporary learning spaces given to them. More people are coming from Mali, from Niger, from Cameroon to replace their classrooms. They are using their classrooms as their temporary place of abode. And teachers do not have classrooms to teach them. They are hungry. They are malnourished. Even their parents have no livelihood. There are a lot of problems. And I went round with the Commissioner for Education. I told him, I am not happy that even government teachers employed to teach in these IDP camps were not there. And I made an inquiry. I was told that they themselves they were hungry, that they have to look for food. That's why I said it's only our development partners like Save the Children that were in those camps. And the military who are doing and trying, having sleepless nights, engaging these children meaningfully. So we are saying that there must be peace in the Northeast. There must be peace. Let there be peace in the Northeast. I plead with the government officials from these states to make sure that there is security in those states, so that there will be normalcy, so that schooling can go on. Now, when the schools were closed, students were not receiving lectures, and they were having exams. They were having NECO, JAM, WAEC exams. They were not setting their own separately. They were having it with their contemporaries in the other parts of the country. So we need to tackle the issue of security. In our unity colleges, many students were killed. 29 of them, precisely 29 February 2014. They were killed because they were receiving education. And you know what? The meaning of Boko Haram is Western education is forbidden. They don't want that. Now we want them to integrate Western education in Quranic education, so that they will have life skill, so that they will have proper knowledge and be able to determine when somebody is giving them wrong ideas and proper knowledge, and to have livelihood. They are not properly engaged. We know about Chibok girls. Precisely 14th April 2014, and over about 200 girls were abducted because they were in school. They don't want girls to go to school. They abducted them, some escaped, some were killed, some up till now are not yet back. As if that was not enough. In 2018, precisely February 28th or 21st, they went to Dapchi, a girls' school, government technical college in Yobe State. They abducted them. Up to now, one of them has not been released. So there has been a lot of problems. We need to address them. We need to have teachers. I went round. These are the schools built by Borno. Beautiful schools, good structure, but we want them to have good quality education. Have teachers there, not just to give education, sound education that will give them life, that will give them livelihood, that will make them important to the society. I want to use this video to create advocacy. One of the ways of doing that is to create advocacy. And the only way you can fight all this insurgency, herdsmen attack, abduction of children in our schools, in any part of the country, is education, 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 and nothing else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Like you have said, and the report says that every war is war against children. And I would like to mention one thing. The very bold and encouraging step that the government of Nigeria has taken recently in approving the Safe School Declaration is something really important as an instrument, as a tool, as a policy to make sure that the schools are safe environments for children to learn in Borno or any other places wherever we have crisis. So my question is, what do you think about the next step? Okay, we have accepted SSD, Safe School Declaration. How about the implementation plan? How do you think that would be coming up in the future?
Thank you very much. That is my desk. Before the ministers left last month, the Federal Executive Council, precisely 20th March 2019, had approved the implementation of Safe School Declaration in Nigeria. They have approved it. And then, before then, the Honorable Minister of Education endorsed it because it was done in 2015 in Oslo. And 2018, my Honorable Minister, Malam Adamu, endorsed it. And we went to the Federal Executive Council, they have approved it. Now we are into ratification. The ratification, Ministry of Justice is handling it. As soon as that is done, by next week, we will go back to them, then it will be implemented. Let me also let the audience know that Safe School Declaration is a global declaration that involves 87 countries, which Nigeria is one. Before then, Nigeria has Safe School Initiative, which concerns Nigeria. And it is how we protected the children in the Northeast by moving them from those war zones to safe states. In our ministry, which is Federal Ministry of Education, remember, education is in concurrent list. States are handling it, that's why it's in a concurrent list. So every state has state ministries of education. So the federal government distributed all our students in this northeast region to safe schools so that their children, the children's education will not stop. It continued. Having done that, the federal government, in its own wisdom, has given a mandate that parents should be prosecuted if their words are not in school. It's not only your biological children. Any child that is under your care must be in school. And then enforcement of this law, child rights law, about 20 states have implemented it, but not all the states. Do you know why? Because some governors are culprits. They marry underage children. They don't want to implement it in their states. Even some of the National Assembly members, they marry underage children. Because of it, they do not want to endorse it and implement it in their states. So we are worried. Federal Ministry of Education is worried. We want every child's right in terms of receiving education to be done. It is their fundamental human right. Nobody should deny them that. But unfortunately, there is a problem. We are still fighting to address all these issues. I also want to commend Ma. You are here, the representative of the Vice President, on the issue of feeding our children, school feeding. Ma, I want to thank you for that project because it has brought a lot of children to school. That's a very good contribution towards our education. Now, I went round, I was told that some children that have passed primary 4 and want to go up to primary 5, they don't want to go to primary 5. They want to remain in their former class so that they will continue to eat. Now, please, let it go around to all the other classes so that when they pass, they will go. So I want to appeal to you to tell the president that that should be considered. And I want to also use this opportunity to beg our development partners. We want to attract more children to school. Some parents are very, very poor. They don't have good livelihood. They use these children as child labor to go and even hawk pure water, as low as pure water that is not up to 100 naira. And their children will be used to do that. They use them to get their economic status. I'm appealing to all our development partners to help us. When you have the fund, I'm not saying you should do it out of your own power. When you have the resources, help us to do that. We will appreciate you. We want as many children. I personally, when I see any child on the street during classes, I always say, where are you from? I go and look for the parent. Because I want every child to be in school. When you go to Maiduguri, it is not like that. I plead with Borno state government to make sure that the girls, we have more girls in schools than boys. But it is important for everybody to be in school. Let us promote advocacy, sensitization, and awareness creation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Really wonderful ideas are coming. I just want to add one more thing. When we are talking about safe schools, we're talking about keeping schools safe from attack. And at the same time, it is also about keeping the environment being conducive. For example, we don't want kids who are sent to school to learn to be abused by anybody on the school premises. And it has to do with reinforcing and revising the teacher's code of conduct to be gender friendly. And what do you think we should do about that, ma'am?
Thank you very much. In fact, you reminded me of an important point I left. I want to tell you, that's why the Federal Executive Council quickly approved that memo. Because we want to secure our schools from attack. Attack is not only when we have guns and when we have Boko Haram. Our school environment should be safe. There should be water in the school. There should be toilets in the school. There should be conducive environment for learning so that the children will be attracted to come to school. Not only that, the girls, especially in the north, they will tell you when they go to the hospital, they don't want male doctors. But do we have female doctors? If you don't want male doctors, fill up the gap so that when you have many girls' schools, female doctors, they will attend to you. But when you don't go to school, we don't have female doctors, how will a man not attend to you? So this is another issue that we need to address. I also want to let us know, we don't just want people on commerce affair in school system. We want professionals. We want those who have passion for their job. Don't where the days when somebody that is not a professional will come into education. I want to remind us now that there is a rule in Federal Ministry of Education that by end of December this year, if you are not a professional teacher, if you have not registered with Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, you will be shown a way out. You will not be a teacher. So we want quality education. We want our schools, those who have that teaching, they have been trained to handle children, they have good conduct, and there are a lot of teachers who have abused these children under their care. They are receiving sanctions from Teachers Registration Council. And we have a department in the ministry that handles that. So we are not keeping it low. We want everybody, our schools, to be safe, peaceful, and convenient for learning and teaching. Teaching and learning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Over to you now, Milen. Like you have been following the discussion, what we need is an accelerated change for children. We are not going to sleep or dwell on this issue forever. change has to be really fast and speedy. But what do you think would be the role of development actors to speed up this process?
Thank you, Aman. I think I would like to start with a little excerpt from one of your reports that is composed by children. They said, this message is from children from Mali, Sudan, Colombia, Yemen, and Syria. Before conflict, they say, we had peace. Before conflict, we could be children. The message ends with a demand, as straightforward and unapologetic as children can be. They say, as leaders, you have this duty to fulfill. We ask leaders to change weapons for books. We ask leaders to put a smile on every child's face. We ask leaders to offer us the opportunities that will enable us to become the best versions of ourselves. Our common future is at risk. We demand that you act now. In answer to your question, Aman, I think that is our first role. We have to listen to the children and do as they say and lead. So the first role is to actually not just listen alone, but to really understand what it is that they're trying to do and design programs that are addressing their concerns. Not the concerns that we think they need, or not because our framework of operation is such that we have a 5-year plan and we need to have X, Y, and Z included in this plan, and that we go ahead and implement it irrespective of whether or not that is what the children need. But an actual programming that is responding to their particular issues and concerns, including that some of the children actually know what it is that they need done or what we need to do in order to really help them. And we're not, I mean, we've moved a long way. I think the Convention of the Rights of the Child and the aspect of the respecting children's views has really helped us bring this to light, that we have to listen and act accordingly to these children. But not enough. And I think we give it a lot of lip service. I think we conduct a lot of focus group discussions. We do talk to the children, but then we end up doing what we were going to do anyway, because that's our budget, that's our mandate, this is what we can do. We can only do it for 6 months, we can only do it for 1 year, and that's not really responding to the needs of children. So the first issue is really making sure that we listen and act accordingly. The second issue, and it's very closely linked to that, is advocacy. The speakers here, and all day long we've been hearing about the Child Rights Act, the 2003 Child Rights Act. It is time for the whole country, every single state, plus FCT, to really not just domesticate it, but actually apply it. And to apply it, we need funds. And to really mobilize resources, we need to have the evidence, which then brings me to the third point, which is data. Where's the data? Do we have data? Sometimes we have too much data. Are we using the data? And if we're using it, how are we using it? Who are we using it for? We can talk about the 3 young children who had strapped bombs on them a couple of weeks ago and blew themselves up, and talk about those 3 children, exactly just those 3 children, and design an entire program around them. Or we can talk about the millions of children in the Northeast that are affected and have been for years on end due to the conflict. I think what we need to do is beyond the statistics. And there is data, but really get understanding of granular level detail, sex disaggregated data, age disaggregated data, so that we can really program for that one child to make sure we're preventing these atrocities and these violations of rights, and also responding to these rights, to these issues. So I think that's the third issue that I would like for us to really highlight. And then fourth, this is really where we can see how Save the Children and this celebration that we have today, we've managed to bring all of us together under one roof. And I think, for me, the fourth point really is about coming together as one and making sure that when we are responding to the needs of a child, because that one child doesn't need just one response. It's not education alone that the child needs, or health, or nutrition, or water and sanitation. It is a whole gamut of interventions that is needed in order for the child to be born healthy and survive and thrive over the years of the child's life until the age of 18. And in order to do that, UNICEF, as big as we are, Save the Children, as big as they are, other partners that are also present here, we need to come together, and we need to come together to support the government. We're here on the behest of the government, and we're here to support the government based on their identified needs, where UNICEF, for example, can provide that support. And that brings me to the last point, which is really about making sure that we have the political leadership and commitment for children. And this has to go beyond special events. This has to go beyond coming together for a really nice morning that we had today and going out to the field, going out to the places where children are, in some of the most remote areas. I've been to places in Nigeria where, after a couple of weeks staying here in Abuja when I first arrived 2 years ago, I thought, oh, Nigeria is wonderful. It's Abuja, right? You go to the northeast, you go to the north, and there are some places there that I was quite surprised. And I've been to many different countries. I've worked in many different contexts. So I was a bit surprised to see some of the status of some of the children that we are here to serve. And I want to make sure that we are being led by government, and we've got strong leadership here. They've been here with us all morning. Thank you. And that we are there.
Thank you, Milen. Thank you very much. I quite like the idea that you mentioned about listening to children, which is very key. But I'm asking myself as you were speaking, like, how much actually do we listen to them whenever we design laws, policies, strategies, action plan, you name it, be it at a national and subnational or even at LGA level? How much are we bringing in kids, group of kids, and listen to them? Hey, kids, these are the kind of plan we want to put in place. What do you think this is about? I mean, we may think like they don't really know what we are trying to do because we are educated and we know more about the issue than them. That's the thinking, or that's kind of school of thought we are in. But I think what we should do is to engage them, to involve them, and to listen to them on how they think we should design whatever we design for them. It shouldn't be a kind of dictation. We shouldn't dictate all the things from the top to down, but it should also come from them and become a national or subnational law, I think. So listening is a key. And we have also talked about prioritizing in terms of fund. You've talked about funding whenever we have laws, but we often have a challenge in terms of resourcing the very good policies we have on paper. So why are we not funding those policies? I think, in my opinion, it's about priority. The issues of children should be on top of the priority because kids are the present and also the future. What we are actually cultivating today, watering and gardening today, we will yield it in the next 10, 20, and 30, and 40 years. So my point is, it should be a priority. Children issues should be a priority. funding should not be something that is going to be tabled for negotiation. It is a kind of must-to-do thing if we really want to make a change in this country. But I have a question for you, Milen. One last question for you, but quickly and briefly. There are a number of actors in the country, international NGOs, CSOs, even local civic societies. But how are we coordinating? We often talk about coordinating and partnership and collaboration. Are we competing or collaborating?
Excellent question. I think right now there are several different coordination bodies that are around child protection issues, for example, or child rights issues, that we may want to consider consolidating. Because we can run the risk of going from one meeting to another, from one coordination to another, led by the government or led by a combination of government and UNICEF, for example. And then before you know it, a year is gone. Because we've just been creating our own work. Because each meeting requires some minutes, some action points, and then we review what have we actually done, and oftentimes we haven't really moved much because we're so busy attending other meetings. I think there is a bit of, we may run the risk ourselves of generating this additional work for us, when in fact we only really need one good, strong coordination body that takes into consideration all the different aspects of child rights, and then we could have within that some subgroup that are maybe issue focused if we have to. For example, on the issue of child marriage, it is a massive issue. There is a lot going on in the Northeast, and we need to address it. So we can identify one or two key priorities within that year that we will focus on and that we can invest additional resources on. But for the most part, I find that it's difficult for me to attend all the meetings that I want to because there are so many meetings. And I don't think you strengthen partnership because you have more coordination bodies. There are many different ways of strengthening the way we engage with people. And ultimately, and first and foremost, for me, the most important individuals that need to be in the leadership is the government. Once they call a meeting, we can go to that and we can support, we can provide whatever technical inputs to those meetings, but they should be the ones to lead. And ideally, although things change, at the beginning of the year, those meetings, the dates should be lined up and we should all know about it and all attend as much as possible. We also have the risk, if you will allow me to share, the risk of having meetings at federal level that don't translate at state level. We can have strong commitments and actions at federal level, but if the issue is in a particular state and there isn't that level of partnership or coordination at state level, we run the risk of just talking to ourselves here and not addressing the issues out in the states. So whatever we do here, we have to replicate at state level and vice versa. The states also need to inform us of what they're doing so that we can support.
Yeah, thank you. I wish we had more time to discuss these very interesting issues. And one last question for Honorable Purity, the Speaker. What do you feel about the things we discuss now? We have been discussing about children and issues of children. Number one, what do you feel about those things? Number two, what do you want to see being changed in the next few years in Nigeria for children?
Good afternoon, everybody. All protocols duly observed. I'm most delighted to be in this place. I'm the only child in the presence of my mom and dad present here today. So I'm so happy. And firstly, I want to talk about gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is a term used to denote harm inflicted on an individual group because of their gender. And also, gender-based violence is a phenomenon that's deeply rooted in the gender of individuals. So children often get their rights as children are being violated, which we all know to be a form of child abuse. Okay, Nigeria, we all know, in every country in the whole wide world, the children are the leaders of tomorrow. Their rights as children need to be implemented. Their voice needs to be heard everywhere in the country. Children, we should know that children face a lot of problems and challenges in the world. We being in a position where we have opportunities to education, going to school, good food, we should know that there are children out there who are suffering, who don't have the opportunity to go to school, talking to my fellow children. So what I am saying is that, in all way, government should help these children to go to school. Okay, there are some causes of gender-based violence, which we all know causes early child marriage. Early child marriage has a negative impact in the life of girl child. When we talk about gender-based violence, it affects the girls most, where parents have to accept dowry from maybe an alhaji to settle bills of to escape the scale of poverty, which we all know to be a child abuse. Concerning early child marriage has a physical, sexual, psychological, economical effect and suffering, harm in the life of a girl child. We as Nigerians, we should join our hands together to end this menace, early child marriage. Children, we want to go to school. We are advocating as a girl child ambassador that children's voice to be heard in everywhere. The rate at which children go to school should be increased, and the statistics of children not in school, that is street children suffering, that don't have the opportunity to be in school, should be reduced. Everyone should be carried along. The rights of everyone should not be neglected. We as children, we should all be carried along. We should all be involved in the decision making of every country, because we are the future leaders of tomorrow. Not only tomorrow, we are the future leaders of today, and we are also the future leaders of tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Madam Purity. Thank you very much. Thank you all, distinguished panel members. I really appreciate.
Allow me to make one point in less than 1 minute. I think the 100 years anniversary theme is Stop the War on the Children. And when Ben Foot was speaking at the beginning of this session today, he spoke about his first early 10 years of peace. I want to throw it to all of us here, because this is a multi-sectoral, it's a multidiscipline. The world we live in today is not only war on children, it's a war of war. What has happened to the mechanism we put forward in 1945 that created peace? Because the war on children is not only, we are focusing on Nigeria, but we have several countries in the world now. Everywhere is like, the whole world is in war. What do we have to do together to stop the war on the world? I think this should be the thinking of all of us in the world now. Because when you look at Europe, you look at Asia, you look at Africa, everywhere is destabilized. And except we solve that global problem, it's not only the children, the world we live in may not be at peace. So to have a hand of war on children, we have to have peace in the world. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your opinions, your experience and knowledge on these issues. Thank you very much.
An estimated 4.2 million children under 18 in Nigeria are in dire need of prevention from abuse, exploitation and exposure to war, all of which are constitutionally protected and promoted by our laws. About 1.4 million children have so far been displaced in the Northeast. 1,400 schools have been destroyed. 2,395 teachers have been killed, according to the UN. And as of May 2019, more than 800,000 school-age children out of school in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states, or the Bay states, of which more than 50% are girls. Indeed, beyond these states, we have children displaced in other states, such as Zamfara, Cross River, Benue, Taraba. The International Convention on the Rights of the Child, as well as the Child Rights Act and the African Protocol on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, provide a comprehensive framework for the fundamental rights of children concerning life, identity, parental care, health care, education, as well as protection from violence, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Section 34 of the Child Rights Act of Nigeria prohibits the recruitment of children below 18 into the armed forces. All bodies, state agencies, and governments are obligated to ensure that no child is directly involved in any military operation or hostilities. International humanitarian law regarding the protection of children is rooted in Common Article 3, applicable to all the 4 Geneva Conventions, and this article is the preemptive norm which no derogation is permitted, including applicability for all. Common Article 3 deals with non-international armed conflicts and requires humane treatment for all persons, prohibits murder, mutilation, torture, cruel, humiliating and degrading treatment, the taking of hostages and unfair trials. It requires that the wounded, the sick and the shipwrecked be collected and cared for. However, compliance with these instruments has been poor, primarily in respect of using children in armed conflicts. In September 2012, Nigeria ratified the optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Involvement of Children in Armed Conflict. Article 3 of the optional protocol called on states to raise the minimum age for the voluntary recruitment of persons into the armed forces from age 15, originally set in Article 28 of the Convention. Nigeria complied with this requirement by ratifying the optional protocol. Moreover, the Child Rights Act expressly prohibits the recruitment of children below 18, and so there's a need to hold accountable all state actors, all non-state actors, such as rebel and insurgent groups that flout this requirement of law. And although one armed conflict may suspend the delivery of public services, and the government continues to be accountable for the well-being of its citizens. The Nigerian government recognizes the effect of violence on children, especially in humanitarian settings. The federal government of Nigeria should be supported to strengthen collective response and coordination for children in Nigeria. And for this, to this end, we really thank the efforts of Save the Children and all other development partners, because they have really been very supportive in efforts to ensure that our children's rights are promoted, they're protected, and safeguarded. So far, a blueprint titled the Buhari Plan has presented a comprehensive humanitarian relief and socio-economic effort for the Northeast, as well as for the return and resettlement of displaced persons, especially children. It is designed to achieve the peace, stability, socio-economic rehabilitation, reconstruction, and long-term sustainable economic development of the region. It is a guiding document for all interventions in the Northeast, covering and harmonizing the efforts and activities of all stakeholders, including civil society organizations, international development partners, philanthropists, state governments, local governments, the private sector, FDAs, and agencies. Through the budget of the National Social Investment Program, which I cover, and I should say my term as special advisor came to an end at the end of May, so I'm former special advisor, not current special advisor, but I'm still serving as a volunteer, working directly with the Vice President. Through our budgets, the National Social Investment Program has contributed to covering social assistance to the Buhari plan in the northeast for displaced persons in the camps. Additional targeting for Borno is currently underway to ensure more poor and vulnerable households are added to our national social registry. And I recognize and acknowledge the efforts of Mr. Aperapia, who has been developing the national social registry around the country for Nigeria. There's a lot of data that has been collected, and it's being desegregated into families with children so that we know where to target when it comes to the different efforts that need to be addressed by the children. Successes include the PCNI that was established in 2015 and has been coordinating humanitarian efforts in the Northeast. That has metamorphosed into the National Northeast Development Commission, which is a significant statement to underscore national concern with the devastation suffered by the region due to the insurgency, the Boko Haram insurgency. There's a multinational joint task force aimed at combating transborder crime. Numerous insurgents have been dislodged and captured, currently kept in the infamous Camp Zero. Government has ensured that the trials of captured Boko Haram are held in secure locations and has secured the release of all the children in one location, albeit with conditions that ensure that those children, their needs are addressed, their dignity is respected, such as psychological trauma, de-radicalization. In fact, the judgment specifically says so. So the issues of rehabilitation, their shelter, their education, their health needs need to be addressed. I can confirm also that preparations are in top gear to hold the trials of all our detained children in identified locations, although due to the nature of the experiences of those captured, the information is not being made. And more than 1 million displaced persons have returned to their homes and communities. The National Protection Policy, Social Protection Policy, was approved in 2017 by the Federal Executive Council. It is a mix of policies aimed at enhancing livelihoods, reducing poverty, addressing unemployment, and providing resilience for the poor, and ensuring that they are resilient to socio-economic shocks. Through our programs, safety nets, and underemployment strategies have been structured to facilitate social and economic cohesion, thereby reducing the probability of conflict and providing coping strategies for harmful customary practices. The social investment programs have also ensured that communities affected by humanitarian crises are targeted and enrolled in the cash transfer programs. The task before us is still large, it's enormous. Prevention remains one of the most effective ways of protecting children and building their resilience. Prevention, by prevention I mean awareness of the harm to children and any nation. We must educate ourselves and our community on how to protect children. We must remain diligent as to the signals that alert us, that should alert us as to the fact that there is a child in distress. Risk analysis and mitigation efforts with the active participation and involvement of government, traditional and religious authorities, civil society and private sector is necessary. In a situation where children are displaced and resident in camps or host communities, we must support the prevention of harm to them, such as gender-based violence, and promote their rights to dignity, and to act as children so that they don't lose their childhood. Healthcare, including mental health and educational facilities, must be available to these children. There remains a need for improved harmonization of our efforts, particularly for children in need of humanitarian assistance. I think this was mentioned by Milen. Children need for us to respect them, listen to them, coordinate their activities in a manner that will ensure an impact that is better. We should stop working in silos. We must operationalize and implement the Child Rights Act. Right now, we have 23 states that have enacted the law. I can say that many of them have not built the institutions. They have not set up the child rights committees. They haven't set up the local government committees to protect, to monitor, and to protect the rights of these children. This is critical. It's not enough to pass a law. It's very critical that we actually enforce the law to ensure that no child is left in suffering. We also need to pass the law in the remaining states because the law has a comprehensive framework for preventing and responding to child abuse and neglect and exploitation. We must also fully implement international humanitarian law regarding the protection of children. We must implement the ratified optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child and also the African Protocol on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. And we must hold perpetrators accountable publicly to the full extent of the law. So family courts must be established along with all the associated support institutions. It is very important that when a child is brought before the law, that child must be protected because we must understand and appreciate that the child is in formative years, she's in the 4 years, in the formative years. We must do background checks, understand where that child is coming from, why these acts were. All of these are relevant in determining what, I don't want to use the word sentence, what outcome comes out of the child in the administration of justice. We must also increase experience in tracing and space to support the return of returnees, especially children. Many children are in places where they don't have any parents due to displacements, or they don't have carers that look out for their welfare. We must strengthen our systems for tracing of minors that are separated from their families and ensure that they are reunited with their families or their legal guardians. We must thank also the International Committee for the Red Cross for the work they have done so far and they continue to do. Mental health and psychosocial support for children abused is urgently required. And we must provide adequate shelter, safe learning spaces for children, and they must be given the opportunity to play, learn, and feel secure. And at this I should mention there's a learning center that the Vice President actually, encouraged people in all around the country to contribute to. And it's amazing what has happened in that place, in Borno land, and there are children there who were orphaned. Most of them have been in Sambisa. There have been provisions for mothers and fathers who have been trained to look after their welfare. I was there recently to see these children, and it was such a delight to even listen to them. They are playing, they're making music, they're drawing. Yes, some of the things they bring up, can be distressing, but I am confident that the healing process has begun, and I'm hopeful that we will have so many more interventions that ensure that our children feel a sense of belonging. They have a sense of family wherever they go, a family that is loving and caring. I think the bane of many of our programs is the lack of funding, which has undermined the delivery of critical child protection services and basic services such as health, nutrition, education have been lacking in terms of, especially in conflict situations. Consistency of financing is required to sustain the efforts of government, and we must put it on the front burner. I'm glad that our distinguished senator is here. He will ensure, I am confident, coming from his background, that children are given priority and their needs are given priority in the budgeting process. We must strengthen social protection because we know we can contribute to building unity and strengthening the legitimacy and effectiveness of the state. There can be no inclusive and coherent society where the poor and the rich drift further and further apart. While the sources of political conflict vary from one country to another, conflict generally originates in severe social grievances, often rooted in the perception of inequality among social, ethnic, religious, or other groups. In concluding, I will say that given the scale of the problem, the terrifying realities for many of our children, we must collectively act fast. It's not about new rights, but the implementation of those already in existence. The government is committed to providing coordination and leadership towards addressing all of these issues, and measures to prevent conflict must be taken. Psychological and social assistance must be provided. Children who are alone or separated from their families must be traced, protected, and provided with special facilities that ensure their safety. Their educational, health, and especially mental health needs and nutrition must be assured. As we sit here today, more and more children are being born and are suffering. Other children are being orphaned or separated from their families. They are being denied their rights. We have the opportunity and the power not only to ensure that children have a better life, we have a duty to ensure that they are safe. We have a responsibility to defend the present and the future. What are we willing to do? What can we do? Where, how, and when? All these priorities must be shared and agreed upon so that we work collectively to address this our vision. I want to thank you, Save the Children, for your service to Nigerian children. Congratulations on 100 years of very, very hard, effective, and efficient work around the globe. With 18 years of living in Nigeria, you are now officially an adult. Thank you for your attention, and God bless Nigeria.